Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day and again that you're looking after yourselves and one another. We are back for our top five albums of the 1980s. We are focusing on 1981 in this episode. I am joined again by Mr. Bill Schuster. How are you doing, Bill?
Good, Armando. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take this opportunity to give Bill credit for these episodes that we're doing. Um, it was his idea to come up with these lists for our top five albums of the 70s and the 80s. We're going to go into the 90s and the 2000s. Um, I obviously contributed, but the genesis for this idea came from Mr. Bill Schuster. And I want to give Bill all the credit for this. So we are going to kick off our top five albums of 1981. We've each picked five albums plus two honorable mentions. These lists, as I said in the previous episode, are going to get more difficult as we go along, especially for me. Okay. Um, I will hand the virtual mic over to Mr. Schuster, and he will give us his number five.
All right, you've already mentioned my number five multiple times. Um, this one kind of screwed me up when I was making my list. I had to go back and reinsert it because I think of it as a 1983 album. Because here in the States, in early 1983, their biggest U.S. hit, they're really kind of their only big U.S. hit, On the Loose, was all over the radio at that point. So it feels like a 1983 album, but it actually is 1981. It's Saga with Worlds Apart. There's one of the two
Covers.
main covers. Some people know this one. I used to have this cover hanging on my wall. It was one of my favorites to have displayed back in the old days. I just thought it was such a cool cover. And the other one's quite a bit different. I wish I had a copy of it to show, but I do not.
I will put it up on the list in the graphics. I will. Yep.
So yeah, this is really their one and only hit album in the States. Their follow up, Heads or Tails, was semi successful also, but I think it was kind of riding on the momentum that was left from Worlds Apart. Uh, this is an excellent album. I mean, Saga is a lot more than this, obviously, but as a teenager, this one and the follow up are what I knew. So this album has been in my life since over 40 years now,
Yeah.
which is why it's still so important. On the Loose was the song that really got me, and that is such an energetic song. It deserved to be a bigger hit than it actually was, frankly. But I'm glad they got some success with it. Wind 'Em Up is the other track that here in the States got a lot of radio play on the rock stations.
Yeah.
There's a mostly instrumental called Conversations, which is pretty awesome. Um,
Mm-hmm.
No Regrets, as I said, I believe it was sung by Jim Gilmore, correct? I,
Yes.
I guess I can check the credits if I want here, but yeah, Michael Sadler is the normal vocalist, but Jim sang No Regrets and did a lovely job on it. Uh,
Yes. Yeah, it's part of the chapters series as well.
yeah, and there are two of those on here. The No Stranger and No Regrets is chapter five. No Stranger is chapter eight. No Stranger, that's a kick-ass closer of a track. It starts out kind of slow building
Mm,
and just kicks in, and yeah, it's a great way to finish the album. Yeah,
amazing.
this album is, again, it's another one of those albums that's loaded with hooks. I
Mm,
mean, frankly, just about any of these songs coulda, shoulda, would have been a hit or a radio staple.
mm,
It's definitely not a hit plus filler album.
yeah.
So
Is
yeah,
just a quick question. Is that a portrait release?
this is, yes, it's Portrait.
Okay. Okay. I was just wondering because I'd love to get my hands on a vinyl copy of the album on Polydor. I have it on CD. It's but I'd have to get like a German or a Japanese pressing of it. for a Polydor release. Um, yeah, that album, Worlds Apart, I think On the Loose reached number 29 on the Billboard charts, and it was considered to be their breakout album in the States. Unfortunately, they couldn't maintain the momentum. I don't know why. I mean, I've said it before. I think Saga is one of Canada's most underrated bands,
Yeah.
and in the States, but good album. And Steve Negus on drums just bloody kills. He just an amazing, amazing drummer. Um, good choice. Good choice. Um, my number five, ladies and gentlemen, is from Black Sabbath with Mob Rules. Uh, Second and final release for Until Dehumanizer from with Ronnie James Dio and the lineup. Um, Fantastic album. Uh, it was my number one album in our I was going to say saga ranking in our Black Sabbath album ranking, that marathon episode. Songs like Turn Up the Night, which starts off the album, fantastic track. Voodoo follows. Again, Ronnie James Dio's vocals, just sublime. The Sign of the Southern Cross. To me, this was Ronnie James Dio at his most aggressive vocally on the album. Just effing brilliant. The title track, which ends off side one, there's two versions of the title track. There's a version on the album itself, and there's the version that appears on the heavy metal soundtrack. Um, when you listen to Fools, the Mob Rules. Can't get any much clearer than that. Falling off the edge of the world. Just an amazing album, just start to finish. Um, it's a shame they couldn't keep it together for longer, but anyways, I digress. That's my number five.
That is a good one, obviously. And yeah, the cover is awesome on that too. I wish, yeah, that's another one I do not have handy. So, but that is such a great cover on that. Uh,
Yeah,
and I will say, as much as I enjoy Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, I'm kind of glad that Ronnie and Vinny left when they did because I'm also a big fan of Born Again and Seven Star and Eternal Idol. So
yeah,
if Ronnie had stuck around, I wouldn't have those albums to enjoy. So more flavors of Sabbath.
true enough. True enough.
All right. I Number four is my favorite by this band. I believe you mentioned them at least once, possibly twice in the 70s, and I surprisingly didn't because they have some great albums in the 70s.
Me repeat myself? Never.
This is them fully embracing the pop, but still having plenty of the rock on here too. This is, I think, the whole band firing on all cylinders. I think they're at their peak here as a unit,
Hmm.
including with their songwriting. Uh, it sticks. Paradise Theater. And we have the another one of those awesome album covers. There's the theater in its decrepit state in 1958. Here's the theater in 1928 when it's the, as it says, the gala premiere. Yeah, which I've always really thought this was such a cool album cover and concept. Here's the guys at the time. Dennis with his porn stash, which was the look in those days and all the lyrics. Yeah, it's a very nice little
Yeah,
album package and concept. But this concept, unlike say Kilroy was here, which followed it, this concept's a little more of a loose concept. It doesn't
yeah,
necessarily follow a story. Um,
yeah. It's about a fictitious theater and that was in business for 30 years, and it's basically about Dennis Young's view of the music business from the 70s going into the 80s, how it's changed and
And
not always for the better.
no.
So
So the two hits off here, of course, were Dennis's "The Best of Times" and Tommy Shaw's "Too Much Time on My Hands."
yeah.
But some of the best tracks, I think, are deeper cuts. Dennis also wrote "Nothing Ever Goes as Planned," which is one of my favorite Styx songs.
Yeah.
And the album ends with a bit more of James Young and Tommy Shaw blended in
Yeah.
with Snowblind and Half Penny, Two Penny, which I think is a great 1-2 punch. Those are such excellent songs.
Oh yeah.
I'm usually not a huge James Young fan. He's usually my least favorite of the main Styx songwriters, but he really killed it with Half Penny, Two Penny here. Yeah. Oh, and let's see here. This, folks, is the I don't know if this is going to show up, but
For the
this is the classic. That's what the actual label looks like. Then you go to the flip. Oh,
it's etched. You can see it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Good
hard to
one,
keep
Bill.
hiding
Oh
in
yeah.
here.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, there we go.
Bloody hell. Yeah, yeah. Good, good. Yeah.
The joys of classic vinyl. Can't quite get that from the CDs.
No, no, no. It's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah. God, you surprised me with that one.
Didn't expect Sticks.
Well, no, no, well, I just know the fact that you showed the album. I mean, and the vinyl and the
Oh yeah,
etching. Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
yeah. Um, my number four, ladies and gentlemen, is Prince with Controversy. I said to Bill before we started taping this episode, Prince is going to come up on the list through the years, and damn right. Uh, this is Prince at his more refined and political best. I mean, there's a lot that can be said. And if you hear my dog barking in the background, I apologize. I think Bob might be home. Um, album starts off with the title track Controversy. 7 minutes plus of pure disco, post disco, whatever you call it, dance. It is what it is. Heavy bass, heavy drums. He does all the instrumentation himself, with the exception of Matt Fink, otherwise known as Dr. Fink, and Lisa Coleman on keyboards. And there was stories of him hiring people for his bands that were less accomplished than he was, less technically savvy. Bullshit. Lisa Coleman is a fantastic piano player, keyboardist, amazing. Songs like Controversy, Sexuality, Do Me Baby, a bit of a theme there. That's side one. Um, Side two, Private Joy. Ronnie Tuck to Russia. Okay, let's work. Any Christian with his more of experimental nature of drum machines and the ever fun track Jack You Off. There we go. I said it. It's done. It's out in the open. And I mean, he was exploring issues of religion, of sexuality, of politics. I mean, for someone to have a song with the title of Controversy and to recite the Lord's Prayer during right in the middle of the track, like, come on. You know what I mean? No one did that in the mainstream, and he pushed the envelope with this album. This was where, again, record companies like Warner Brothers, etc., would allow their artists to develop themselves in terms of their compositions and their credibility as songwriters. He wasn't at his peak at this point. That would come later, obviously, but he was on the right road. And it was around this time that he had just opened for the Rolling Stones. He may have been booed off stage. That's fine. But he opened for the Rolling Stones in 1981, October of 1981. There you go. Done. So that's my number four.
Nice. And yeah, just the fact that the record companies did allow that, it allowed him to do these things he wanted. It paid off for them
Oh
because he
yeah,
did obviously become a superstar and made them a hell of a lot of money. So their investment paid off big time.
yeah. No, definitely, definitely. I mean, you wouldn't get away with the subject matter on these albums today. You would not get away with it, which is unfortunate, but that's the way that the music business has gone. So,
All
yeah,
right.
number three.
Number three. Yeah, this is another one that they almost made it a couple of times previously, but they couldn't quite do it. I always liked their lineup with their original singer and keyboard player, but along the way they got a second singer, and eventually the original left, and they got a new keyboard player to go along. And that new singer was Steve Perry. The singer who left 3 albums later was Greg Raleigh, and Jonathan Cain was the keyboard player who replaced Greg with this album, Escape by Journey. Yeah, everybody knows this. This is their biggest hit album. And of course, Don't Stop Believing. I think many people might pretty well just drown themselves in the bathtub if they had to hear Don't Stop Believing again. They would not come up until the notes were done playing. But I still think it's a great song. Is it overplayed in everything? Yes. But it's still a great song. And funny enough, of course, it was the least of the 3 big hits. And Open Arms hit number 2. Who's Crying Now hit number 4. Don't Stop Believing only made it to number 9 on the charts. So one of those cool little tidbits that people think of songs. Well, that was obviously their biggest hit. No, it really wasn't.
Hmm.
It was successful, but not this big legendary thing that it's become. Thanks to all
Hmm.
the other media it's been used in. I know it was used in The Sopranos, it was used in Glee, among other things.
Yeah.
So whole new generations have embraced that song. It's kind of become this cliche.
Yeah.
But there's an entire album here. This whole album is strong. I had mentioned Gary Richrath in the previous episode, REO Speedwagon with High Infidelity, with his guitar tone
Hmm.
sound he got. I think Neil Sean does the same thing here with this album. He was always a great guitar player, but it takes on, again, like with Gary, it takes on this smooth, really gorgeous sound here that I don't think he had in quite the same way prior to this album.
Hmm.
I don't know if that was deliberate. I don't know if it was the production. Maybe Jonathan Cain's different style of songwriting and playing spurred him on. But yeah, the man plays a pretty guitar. And he kicks ass too when he wants to with it. He can rock hard. And
Hmm.
for example, Escape, the song itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. Mother Father is a great,
Oh yeah.
very touching. Yeah.
Bloody hell. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm your seventh son. Yeah, it's one of Steve Perry's most heartfelt, touching vocals.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think even better, I think my favorite song on the album has always been Still They Ride. That was another attempted single. I love to sing along with that song. It's just this wistful
Yeah.
look back on, yeah, younger
Yeah.
days. So yeah, this album's played out, especially the opening song, but it's still just a brilliant album. Another one of those that's successful for a reason, and another one of those classic cool covers with
Yeah.
the Beatle here.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, they Don't Stop Believing did have a life before Glee. Okay, that's all I'm gonna
Did.
say. And if we're talking about Journey, this is an album that I completely forgot about for the 1980 episode. If you guys can get yourselves a copy of a Journey album called Dream After Dream,
Yeah.
holy shit. It is a soundtrack to a movie that Journey did. 9 songs. three with vocals, six instrumentals, bloody amazing. The one track with vocals is called Little Girl that I first heard on the Journey times Cube sound box set. Amazing. Amazing. I cry every time I hear that song. I bawl my eyes out because it is so full of emotion. You guys really have to check that out, but I digress. I'm remiss. I should have mentioned that in my list, but there you go. Check out Dream After Dream.
That's a
Uh,
good call. I think most casual Journey fans definitely don't know about that album. It was
I
not the kind of hit.
It's our loss because they should.
Yeah,
They
it's a
really
good
should.
album.
I got a Japanese copy of that Japanese pressing years ago, and I still have it, and I always listen to it. I think it's fantastic.
Nice.
Um, but we must carry on, ladies and gentlemen. My number three, I told you the eclecticism is gonna turn up in these episodes. My number three is from the Human League with Dare.
Nice.
Um, Now, the Human League started out as a post-punk new wave band. Dare was released with the singles "Don't You Want Me," uh, "Love Action," "I Believe in Love." It was the first album that, upon reading the credits, realized that all of the instruments were done using synthesizers and drum machines. And you know what? Who gives a shit? It's an ass shaker of an album. Um, the songs like, these are the things that dreams are made of. Love Action, I Believe in Love, Don't You Want Me, Seconds, Do or Die, Get Carter, I Am the Law. I mean, just an amazing album um, from a new wave dance kind of a tilt. This is an album that you should get. And for those of you who are into the more dance oriented stuff, upon the release of this album a year later, they released under the name of Human League Unlimited Orchestra, or the League Unlimited Orchestra, sorry, produced by Martin Rushent. They released an instrumental album of these songs called Love and Dancing, where on side one, there is a 7 minute, 30-second version of Don't You Want Me. Put this on at a house party or in the club, your ass will be shaken up to kingdom come. It don't matter. You will be moving and grooving all over the place. So number three for me is Dare from the Human League.
I remember when that album was new. We were living in California for a year. That was, I could still see the distinctive cover too.
Yeah.
And Don't You Want Me was that's one of those all-time great singles.
And just quickly, if you really listen to the lyrics, he's saying, "You better return your affection from me, or else I'll take you where I put you, and I'll put you back in obscurity. I made you who you are. Without me, you're nothing." So if you really listen to the lyrics, it's a guy degrading the quote unquote, you know, uh target of his love, or the one that he claims to love more than anything, and he's telling her, if you don't love me the same way, you're out, and I'll take care of you. So the lyrics are dark, but man, it was a nice shaker of a track. Holy shit. So that's
And
why
she
it's
did refute that point of view. She came back to counter that argument that he made her.
yeah.
Said, "Oh no, you didn't."
No, no, you may have helped, but I am who I am because of myself, not because of you. So, but it's still a nice shaker of a track, and then it's a nice shaker of an album, top to bottom. So
Nice
that's
pick. That's a very 80s pick. That's good.
yes, it is.
All right. Again, very similar to my 1980 picks. I was torn who was going to go first. A little foreshadowing here. It's a rematch.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And again, they're in the same order. So my number two is Blue Oyster Cult, Fire of Unknown Origin, which for the longest time was my favorite Blue Oyster Cult album.
Mm.
I don't know that I have a particular favorite now, but this thing is brilliant and might be my favorite Blue Oyster Cult album cover. I mean, that is the Blue Oyster Cult. That's perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
That is such a cool, creepy cover.
Oh yeah, yeah. We know
Yeah,
where
this,
you
of
live.
course. What's that?
The cover says, "We know where you live.
Yeah.
You will not. We will not lose you. We will find you." Kind of a thing. So yeah, yeah, it's cool.
Um, right. This has their second biggest hit, Burning for You. And Burning for You, I mean, it was didn't quite make the top 40. I believe it stopped just outside the top 40.
Mhm.
But still, it's been played to death on rock stations ever since then. Uh, but again, we go beyond the hits to the deeper tracks on here. And again, I'm a fan of the Bouchard brothers, Joe and especially Albert. And my favorite track on this is Vengeance, the Pact. For those who don't know, this album kind of ties in both intentionally and unintentionally with the heavy metal adult animated film that came out back around these times.
Yeah.
Of course, Veteran of the Psychic Wars, another track on here, an Eric Bloom, Michael Moorcock collaboration again, was the song that made the heavy metal soundtrack in the movie. But there were a number of songs on here that were specifically inspired by and written for heavy metal with the
Mhm.
thought that they're going to be used. Vengeance the Pact was one of those. It addresses the episode with Tarna, which is the final story in the movie.
Mhm.
And the stories that I've heard is basically they didn't use this because it encapsulated the entire story of Tarna in this one song, and
Mm.
it kind of gives it all away. But it's a really cool song. Yeah, it does. If you've seen the movie, you'll know by listening to these lyrics. But musically, the song is pretty cool too.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it even has a song on here called Heavy Metal, the Black and Silver. I guess they figured, heavy metal by Sammy Hagar was already on the soundtrack. Heavy Metal Taking a Ride by Don Felder was already on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't need another heavy metal. This
Yeah.
also has Joan Crawford, which is another one of those classic Blue Oyster Cult deep cuts, has this awesome piano, the intro. It's very creepy. And of course, it has the voice of Joan Crawford herself. It's not actually the voice of Joan Crawford, but it's Joan coming back from the dead, calling her daughter, who had recently had a successful, not so nice biography about her mother and her own
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah.
And Joan in the song is Christina, mother's home, Christina,
Oh my
come
God.
to mother. It's very creepy and
You got me looking
cheesy,
behind me
cool.
now, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my friends, when they first introduced me to this album a few years after it came out, I only knew Burning for You until, say, 84, 85. But
Mm.
we didn't know a whole lot about the stories behind this. They told me some pretty creepy things about the song. So, yeah, it was
Yeah.
even creepier with their fake stories that they thought
Yeah.
were true. You know how these, when you're young and you don't know the details on things, how these
Exactly. Yeah.
rock myths come
Yeah.
to get passed around amongst music lovers.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was around the time that the movie Mommy Dearest came out.
Mm-hmm.
I never looked at coat hangers the same way again, man. I'm telling
Oh
you right
no,
now. And for those of you
no.
who don't know what we're talking about, check out the movie, the series. That was a good choice. It's a good choice. My number two is, you've mentioned it, Sticks with Paradise Theater.
Nice.
Um, Good concept for an album. I like it better than Kilroy Was Here. I'm sorry. This was to me at their base, pretty much at their peak for the 80s, 70s. There's another album for that. It could be, there's, choices, right? In the 70s, there's more choices. But for me, Paradise Theater fantastic album. AD 1928, rock segues into Rock in the Paradise. I've always loved Dennis DeYoung's voice. Harmonically, just bloody amazing. Able to do melodies like no one's business. Too much time on my hands. The best of times. I was literally listening to this track today and I started crying. I started tearing up. Like I had to leave the room and just compose myself and, get my, because the emotion in his vocal at the end, when at the end of the vocal, when he overdubs the lyrics, and it's just gut wrenching because he's singing to his wife Suzanne,
Yeah.
right? And he's saying to her, I love you more than my own life. I would die for you, you know, pretty much. And it's just, I'm getting teared up right now thinking about it. It's just amazing, amazing. Um, yeah, and the fact that it ends off with you know, AD 1958, and just, okay, we're done, folks. This is the end of the story. And hopefully paradise will return again, kind of thing. Paradise in the storyline of the album, it's a feeling. It's not so much a time and place. It's a feeling that you got when you listen to certain music at a certain time in your life. And what he's saying is that time in the early 80s was gone. And hopefully we can get it back again. You know what I mean? So that's why it's my number two, you know. Um, yeah, that's my number two.
So
Six.
you talking about Dennis and his wife Suzanne? That's one of the great long-lasting rock and roll relationships. I mean,
Oh yeah.
they're still together.
Yeah.
They've been together since the '60s. I mean, well before Styx ever came on
Yeah.
the.
When they married, he was a teacher, apparently. He was a teacher and he left his job and started the band. And he said to her, um, I want to do this. Will you take this ride with me? And I can just imagine them holding hands and saying, and her telling him, let's go for it. Do what you want to do. That is love. That is love and devotion and complete acceptance, right?
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are hearing the dogs bark, Bob is home right now. So forgive that. But that's my number two.
all right. Obviously, I agree with the pick. So, yeah. All right. As I already alluded to with my number two choice, this is the rematch from 1980 to my all-time favorite musical artists. This is the big obvious one. This is their most famous one. Has their most famous song. But it's again much like Permanent Waves in 1980. This isn't one of my favorite Rush albums, but it's still a masterpiece. It's moving pictures, and of course, it has Tom Sawyer. Which no matter how many times I hear it, I don't care. Every time I saw them in concert, I know a lot of hardcore fans are like, "We don't need to hear that again." Bullshit. You bastards better play Tom Sawyer because that thing still is awesome, no matter how overplayed it is. It sounds amazing. And of course, Neil always said he enjoyed the challenge of playing that song every night on the drums. The fact that it was still challenging to him after decades says a lot. Um, but yeah, of course, side one's pretty much you got Limelight on there, you got YYZ, and you got Red Barchetta. Those four songs are the big radio staples, the big concert staples. They're all classics. Anybody that remotely knows Rush probably knows these songs. The Camera Eye is on side two. When I saw him on the Time Machine tour, which my wife Stacy, we took our son Neil, who is familiar to those who saw our Black Sabbath episode, The Ranking.
Mhm.
Um, we took him to see Rush on that tour, and that was the tour that they were doing this album live. The Time Machine tour, as I said. And it was pretty cool to hear the Camera Eye live. I mean, because to best of my recollection, is that the only time that was ever played live was on that tour?
No, I believe it was played around 1981. I do believe.
Yeah,
I do believe. Don't
wasn't
quote
it?
me.
Yeah, I think you may be right. I think they might have played it limited, yeah, for a limited period there initially, but yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, the camera eye is one of those cool. It kind of almost gets forgotten. I think it gets overshadowed a lot by the stuff on side one, of course. But it's a really cool two-part epic about New York and London, two different cities,
Yeah.
um, and it evokes them quite nicely.
Mhm.
And yeah, Witch Hunt is great. Musically, it's cool, but lyrically, especially, I think, yeah, those who know what's best for us must rise up and save us from ourselves. That,
Yeah.
yeah, the lyrics on that are just,
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
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 Um, Basically, it's about the all the Puritan censors who are looking to suck the joy out of everything in life.
Yeah.
Basically, I'll
Yeah.
just put it that way.
Hmm.
And then, of course, Vital Signs, the oddball throw on track, of course, that kind of pointed the way towards where they were going with their next album.
Hmm.
Deeper into the 80s, a bit more keyboard heavy and more, it fit in more with the new wave, I guess I'll use for lack of a better term.
Hmm.
And pretty cool track. Yeah, it's a perfect 7 tracks. There's nothing wrong with any of these tracks. So
Yeah.
I understand why this is many people's favorite. And for a lot of people, it's the only Rush album they own. Again, it's not my favorite because I have my own biases towards different periods, but
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
brilliant. It's worth being the number one in 1981. So obviously, I think pretty highly of it.
That is my number one as well.
All right.
And ladies and gentlemen, we did not compare lists. We did not talk about any of it. And come on in, Bob. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob is Hanson.
Hi, Bob.
Hello, how are you?
Tired, but good.
Yeah. There you go. There you
Yes.
go. So yes, that is my number one. And I'm going to keep that in because it's authenticity, ladies and gentlemen. Um, it is my, I wasn't going to be my number one. I removed my number one, put that to an honorable mention because you know what? It is moving pictures and it is Rush. It deserves to be number one. Um, it's top to bottom, fantastic album. Everything that you said times 10 is basically all I can say. And if you can get yourselves a copy of the 40th anniversary edition, it's a triple disc set. The two discs that come with it are a live concert done by Rush at the Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto in March of 1981, complete and unfiltered. Soundboard recording. It is to me what should have been released as Exit Stage Left. Complete. Fantastic set list, complete with extended drum solo on YYZ. And for those of you who don't know, YYZ is the airport code for the Toronto International Airport, Pearson Toronto International Airport in Toronto, of course. Um, it is a fantastic album, and it deserves to be on this list at number one. So that is my number one.
The fact that we both chose it as number one says it all.
Speaks volumes. So, what is
Yeah.
your first honorable mention?
My first honorable mention is going to a band who I did mention at least a couple times in the 70s. This was a bit of a departure for them. Well, the previous album, some people called their previous album Disco Very.
Mm-hmm.
That album was actually Discovery. And it saw them embracing more electronic and less symphonic
Yeah,
sounds.
yeah.
It's the Electric Light Orchestra, but at this point they'd shortened their name to ELO. and this album is Time. It had a hit here in the States with Hold On Tight. Twilight also got some play, but this is a concept album. It's cheesy as hell. It really is, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
also very brilliant and touching. It's some of the songs on here, some of the lyrics are brilliant and heartfelt. Some are what you would expect someone in 1981 to write about the distant future.
yeah,
And we can look back on it and say, well, that's ridiculous. What a, like watching some old science fiction movie from the 50s or something now. Uh, Yours truly, 2095, is an example of that, where the narrator speaks of his relationship with this synthetic life form in the future. That it's not quite the same as with his real mate in the past, but
hmm hmm
um, uh, the way life's meant to be might be my favorite song on here. I don't, for
yeah,
some reason, I seem to remember that being on the radio, but that might just be in my head. You know how those childhood memories are.
yeah,
Uh, that's just, it kind of goes away from the concept a bit, but it just is again one of those simple, touching, heartfelt lyrics. And it's just a very hooky song.
mhm.
Um, Here is the News is another good one. There's a bit of vocoder stuff, and as I said, more keyboards in here. We've lost the string section at this point, part of the thing that made
Yeah,
Electric
yeah,
Light Orchestra famous.
yeah.
But I think on this album it works. Um, this is one of my favorite ELO albums. It's, I put it a notch below three or four of the '70s albums, maybe,
Yeah.
but not by much.
Yeah. Okay.
Jeff Lynne moves nicely into the '80s.
Yeah. No, he does. He does actually. And I think I have that album. I have all the ELO albums on vinyl. I think the album Time was engineered by Mac, Reinhold Mack, who produced Queen's albums in the 80s. And yeah, I think it is.
You are
But
correct.
yeah,
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 engineered by Mac,
yeah.
produced by Jeff Lynne, of course.
Yeah, no, he Jeff Lynne would never let anyone else produce his stuff. Yeah, no, that's good. It's a good choice. My first honorable mention is King Crimson with Discipline. Um, this is King Crimson Mach, what, 99 at this point? I mean, yeah, I
Well
mean,
beyond this one.
yeah, well beyond that one. Um, you had Robert Fripp, Tony Levin, Bill Bruford, and Adrian Belew, um, 7 tracks, experimental, coming in on the cusp of just on the end of the new wave era. Um, Textured, layered, but still sparse in terms of the drums that are used on the album. Um, Tony Levin did some fantastic bass work on this album with songs like Frame by Frame. Um, how do you pronounce this? Telahunjinji, I think. I don't know how you call it. Um, Elephant Talk that starts off the album with, you've got Adrian Belew just sounding off, talk, elephant talk, this talk, whatever. Just these sort of nonsensical lyrics that he's throwing out there, right? Almost like in a rap kind of uh, rap vein. But very accessible. As experimental as it is, it's also very accessible, right? So and I just started to get into King Crimson last year. So that's my first honorable mention.
All right, cool.
Yeah. And your
All
last one?
right. My last honorable mention, eh, surprisingly, I only mentioned two of their albums at the '70s.
Yeah.
I'm going to take some crap for bringing this one when I ignored all the Peter Gabriel albums, even though I love them. But it's Genesis with Abacan.
Fantastic album.
Yeah, I love this album.
You're gonna get crap from me.
And I will say, I'll take No Reply at All as one of the greatest pop singles of all time. And it's a top 10 Genesis track for me, possibly top five. I mean, you can have your suppers ready and sit it right next to No Reply at All for me. They're
Oh
two
yeah,
absolutely night and day different types of songs, but they're both masterpieces at what they're trying to do.
hands down, hands down, like
And
unreal.
I think No Reply at All maybe might be my favorite Phil Collins vocal. I think he's at a vocal peak here. I really enjoyed his stuff when he first took over on the Trick of the Tail for Genesis. But he was sounding a bit more innocent, more smooth.
Yeah,
Here he started to get more strength in his vocals, but he hasn't yet reached that point where he went over the top with it and got
yeah,
a little strident that he became later.
yeah,
Um, it was just a really emotional, powerful vocal, and it's loaded with. I mean, it's all over the place. You've got the Phoenix horns on here from Earth, Wind, and Fire.
yeah,
Just Ted, he would use them again on his solo album with "I Missed Again," if I
yeah,
remember. And of course, Abacab, excuse me,
yeah,
the title track. All right, other than a series of notes, who the hell knows what it means lyrically? But it doesn't matter.
yeah,
I mean, it's this song's about the music and about the jam, that closing. It takes forever. It's kind of amazing that this song was such a radio staple, considering that long instrumental fade out.
yeah.
Not typically the sort of thing that's going to be a standard on radio stations.
No, no.
Uh, the other hit on the album was "Man on the Corner." That's one of those simple, just a lovely Phil Collins slow song.
Yeah,
There's not a lot to it musically, but it doesn't need a lot.
yeah,
Again, it's more about the message, and it's another strong vocal performance from him. Me and Sarah Jane, great Tony Banks track. I mean, Tony, I'm a big fan of Tony
yeah,
and his writing and his keyboard playing. So Keep It Dark is really cool. And the sounds that Tony's getting from his keys, he's very much moving into the 80s here.
oh, very much so. Very
Yeah.
much so.
And Dodo, Lurker, awesome. Some people really see that as a throwback to their more progressive rock stuff, which whether
Yeah,
it is or not, I don't care. It's just a really cool, creepy song.
yeah,
Uh, Who Done It is the one that's typically controversial on here. Oh, was it you or was it me or
yeah,
was it extra? Yeah,
yeah,
I don't mind it at all. It's fun. It's short and just it's a goof. It's a lark. It's
yeah, yeah,
just a catchy little song. It's
yeah. I know one person that can't stand that track, but you know what? You didn't write it. You didn't record it. Move on. I won't even go there.
exactly. And
Exactly.
let's not blame Phil for it either, because the credit on Who Done It is Banks, Collins, Rutherford. That was
There
all
you,
three.
there you
So if
go.
you hate it, blame the whole band.
There you go. There you go. Hate the game, not the player. If you know what I mean. It's a good choice. I've always liked Abacab and I loved Keep It Dark. And Me and Sarah Jane. And again, you're right. No Reply at All is a textbook example of a properly crafted pop song, pop rock song. So that's a good choice. It's a good choice.
Eventually, we're going to have to get around to doing this with songs. You know that, right?
Explain.
The series we're doing with albums. We're going to have
Oh,
to get her. Yeah. What are
okay.
your top five songs? Blah, blah.
Good, 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 good. I'm up for it. Not
That's a
tonight,
whole
but I'm up
different
for it.
challenge.
Oh yeah. I'm up for it, but not tonight.
No, not tonight.
My last honorable mention was my number one for 1981, but I switched it out. I was gonna say shit, I shifted it out. Stevie Nicks with Belladonna.
Nice.
Um, her first, you know, uh, solo release, produced by Jimmy Iovine and Tom Petty. Basically, she's got Tom Petty's band, the Heartbreakers, on this album. Benmont Tench, Stan Lynch, Mike Campbell is all over this bloody thing. You've got other musicians like Don Felder, uh, Don Henley, you know. To me, this was her best album. It went like 4 times platinum in North America, and every album that she did after this slowly went down in sales. Okay, so if is it possible to have a debut album be your best? Yes, it is. With songs like the title track Belladonna, which means beautiful woman in Italian. After the glitter fades, uh, Leather and Lace, a duet that she did with Don Henley, which I do believe was written for Waylon Jennings and Jesse Coulter.
Mhm.
Um, Edge of 17. Like, come on. That riff,
A Waddy Wachtel guitar there. That
like, yeah, come on. I mean, like, if Beyonce can sample that and get away with it, like, when Destiny's Child, come on. I'm talking about the original, though. Amazing, amazing arrangement. Kind of Woman. Think About It. Other songs on the album. The Highwaymen. Uh, How Still My Love. Okay, you know what I mean? This album, if you really listen to the arrangements on the album, with the exception of Edge of 17, it's been pretty much a new country album. You know what I mean? You can,
yeah.
this can be played in a country bar and it is not out of step. Okay. Um, why is it an honorable mention? Because you know what is, how can I put this? Could Stevie Nicks be considered a one-trick pony or a one-album pony? I think she is. I'm sorry. I've seen her in concert with Fleetwood Mac and they're good. But you know what? This was her at her zenith. Every album, yes. The Wild Heart, Rock a Little, Other Side of the Mirror, Street Angel, they all went down in production. Whether it was co-induced, I don't know. But you know what? This was Stevie Nicks at her zenith, and I'm sticking to that. So
Yeah.
um, you got to wonder, just quickly, you got to wonder how much of it was Stevie Nicks input, how much of it was good production techniques by Tom Petty and Jimmy Iovine.
Maybe a little of all of the above.
Could be, could be. Um,
Yeah, that is an excellent album. Yeah, How Still My Love in particular, I've always really enjoyed that song. That was an attempted hit from my recollection. I don't
yeah,
Obviously it didn't quite have the lasting power of Edge 17 or Leather and Lace or Stop Dragging My Heart Around, but
yeah, yeah,
yeah, but I would agree that that absolutely is Stevie at her peak, whether with or without Fleetwood Mac.
yeah. It is. It is. So, guys, our top 5 albums of 1981 plus 2 honorable mentions. Please, again, in the comments down there, put your top 5, top 10, top 20, you know, even top 3, whatever you'd like to do. We'd like to get people involved, and we'd like to know your opinions. You know, everyone has an opinion. There are no right or wrong answers, just opinions. So, again, I want to thank Mr. Bill Schuster for joining me on this episode. We will be back. I've already got my list here ready to go. We will be back with top 5 albums of 1982. And from Mr. Bill Schuster, I am Armando Venditti. Please look after yourselves and one another, and we will see you soon again with another episode. Bye for now.